You
Okay,
can see
they're
them
up
now,
now.
right?
Yeah, we can see them now.
Yep,
Okay,
we can
perfect.
I can see
Okay.
them. Ken,
Yes.
we'll just pause for a while. We're going to go live through Facebook.
Okay.
TS is already doing it right now. Just
They
give me
are?
2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting for this to come up, does anybody have any questions or tell me a little bit about who you guys are and where you're coming from? Are you students at Grace? Currently, if I could just see a show of hands. So is everybody here from Global Filipino Movement?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Very good. So tonight's topic is on suicide talk and just some preliminary information before we get started. For those of you that are on Facebook Live, please go to gsot.edu/suicide talk form and register. If you register, we'll have your information. The image that you'll see over here on your right-hand side are going to be some documents that we're going to be able to see you at the completion of the class tonight. The first 3 documents are handouts that were sent out to everybody that was registered for this class. There's an exploration worksheet, helpers and community, and a feedback form. When this is completed, we'll need the feedback form uploaded to the suicide talk form above, up here at the gsot.edu/suicide talk form. And when that happens, when we get the feedback form, we're going to send you this certificate of completion along with these other documents that are here, which will be some tools and resources for you to be able to use back home. Additionally, you can also just send it directly to myself at the email address below at ken@careforce.us. ken@careforce.us. Again, the only thing I'm going to need is that third form, the feedback form. And if you're on Facebook Live and you haven't gotten it, go register at gsot.edu/suicide talk form, and we'll have your email so we can send you all of this when this is done. Additionally, we did talk, there is a polling app called Poll Everywhere, POLL Everywhere. If you have your phones and you go to the App Store and download that, you'll be able to participate with this live interactive polling that will show up real time, or you can open up a web browser at pollev.com/Ken Schlenker, my full name, 546. I'll give you just a few minutes to pull that up. You can also go to your phone and text Ken Schlenker 546 to the number 37606 to participate. If you don't have a phone or a browser and you're here in the classroom or you're live on Blue Jeans, when we get to the poll, please hold down your space bar and talk, and we can hear you. But if you can, please go ahead and use the app to do that. So we're going to hit our first poll right now. And basically, it's just the question, what do you hope to get from this training? I could see somebody already put up here how to manage suicide thoughts, to deepen my understanding of causes of suicide and know how to prevent incidents of it. Better collaborations within the community. I'd like to understand the process that a person undergoes when contemplating and attempting to commit suicide. What are the red flags? Is there anything I can do? skills to help individuals struggling, and how can we prevent suicide tendencies. As someone that has tendencies, I'm hoping to understand myself better and discover ways to help myself and those around me. Being able to recognize a person in distress, or skills to help individuals, fellowship and training. So we can go on. There's a number of thoughts, and thank you everybody for doing that. If we go to our next poll, what I'd like you to do is to rate your level of understanding on this particular topic. So on the far left is extremely knowledgeable. You just have to tap on your screen. In the middle is neutral, and on the far right is not knowledgeable at all. So we'll just give a few people or some time for that. So it looks like we got one person on the far right, no knowledge. Seems like most of you are in the neutral section. Okay, that's great. Couple bordering on extremely knowledgeable. Very good. So you can see from just looking at this class, that from all of us that are here, we kind of have this broad spectrum from very knowledgeable to not having any knowledge whatsoever. I'd also just briefly would like to know, how did you hear about this event? Was it by email? Was it on Facebook, Twitter, website, newsletter, blog? Okay, so it looks like pretty much everybody's heard this through email. Thank you for that. All right, so again, I'm Ken Schlenker, and I'm the founder of careforce.us, and we offer crisis training, organizational and leadership consultation and coaching around crisis. And I'm also the director of chaplaincy at Grace School of Theology, which is located here in the Woodlands. As Daniel had mentioned, Grace offers fully accredited ATS and TRACS online degree programs ranging from an associate all the way up to doctorate in 38 countries in 8 different languages. I am also a trainer with Living Works Education. Living Works supports local efforts to develop and maintain suicide prevention resources. Later, I'll be sharing some information about some of the other Living Works programs that together help create a suicide-safer community. Today's program, suicideTALK, is one resource developed by Living Works to explore suicide awareness, commitments to suicide prevention, and dedication to life protection. Being here may be more than a matter of curiosity for some. As we've already seen by some of the question that Daniel had asked earlier about being touched by this, some of you, and even by somebody that indicated that they had tendencies, some of you may be concerned that you're at risk of suicide. Some of you may be worried that someone you know is at risk. And I'm sure there are some survivors of suicide among us today. For those concerned about yourself, learn that you do not need to be alone with suicide. We will provide some information on where to find help. For those concerned about someone else, we'll cover some of the things that they need. For those of you who have lost someone to suicide, I know that it can be hard to listen to things that in hindsight you might have given almost anything to know before today. I can share with you that this program exists because knowledge about suicide is not widespread. Today's session visits, revisits, and visits again the question, should we talk about suicide? The session is organized around many of the different things that question can refer to. Your answers will help you discover how you feel about some fundamental issues in suicide prevention. In other words, this is really more of an exploration than a presentation. I hope by the end that you'll agree with me that we should talk about suicide. No matter what, the session will give you the chance to find out how you feel about these issues. You'll get a chance to see the range of things you could do to help your community prevent suicide and discover if you have an interest in doing some of them. I hope that you might make a commitment to put your beliefs into action. If you answer yes to the talk question, we might call you a suicide talker. The first step that suicide talkers take to put their belief into action solves a big problem in talking about suicide. Finding others who want to talk about suicide. To find others to talk to, you need to start talking yourself. So let me ask you this question. Should we talk about suicide? What do you think? Why should we? To go back to your polling app, or if you're on the web page, go ahead and do the poll. Okay, so yes, we should talk about it. Why should we be talking about this? Take away the stigma and shame, exactly. Bring awareness to it. Get rid of the stigma. You know, that's a big one. You know, for some reason, it's okay for me to say I got congestive heart failure, or I broke a leg, or I have some infirmity, physical infirmity. But the moment we start talking about a behavioral health, mental health issue, or suicide, it's all of a sudden, shh, we don't talk about that. We need to remove the stigma. This is a public health issue. In the county that we live in here in Montgomery County, we have the highest teen suicide rate in the nation right now, or in Texas rather. Nationally, when we look at law enforcement, last year we were at 169 law enforcement suicides compared to, or 169 last year, and this year we're already over 130 compared to only 70 line of duty deaths. It's a big deal. We need to overcome this. We really do need to talk about this and raise, just like somebody says here, to eliminate the stigma and to pave the way for understanding and awareness of the root issues. It's only this way that we can have critical conversations to hopefully journey with those susceptible to it and hopefully prevent it. Absolutely. So, why do people not want to talk about it? Why do they want to avoid what we call S-talk? There's some more polls. Why do people want to avoid directly talking about it? What's the T? Rejection. Okay. Judgment, maybe. It's unpleasant. It's uncomfortable. People don't understand it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So some people are not so sure about talking directly about suicide. Sometimes they have reasons for avoiding it. Sometimes they just practice avoidance without knowing consciously why they are doing it. Sometimes they're not even aware that they avoid talking about it. You know, a lot of times we dismiss, and avoid the issue because of fear, because of dealing with mortality. You know, traditionally, S-talk has been given meanings that distance us from it. Evil, sick, contagious, fearful, so that all of us come by our avoidance very honestly, so to speak. Indeed, we're all S-talkers occasionally. S-talking versus suicide talking is not an us versus them issue. It's a one part of us versus another part of us issue. So powerful is the tradition of avoidance that it's rare to find a person who is free of S-talk all of the time. You know, if you think through our communities, imagine there's a river of suicide that's going through our community. And people are missing, dismissing, and avoiding the issue. Just with the people that are in the class, if I could see a show of hands, how many of you have had CPR training? You know, how to help somebody with a heart attack. Okay. How many of you know what a lifeguard is? Right, everybody? Okay. Aren't lifeguards trained to be on the banks and to observe people in the water that are drowning? And that they have been trained in order to enter in the water safely for both themselves and the individual and bring them back to the shoreline so they do not drown. That's the type of attitude that we need to have with regard to suicide. We need to learn how to talk about it so that we can become suicide first aiders, so that we're ready, willing, and able to save a life of somebody who is drowning in this river of suicide. Suicide talk is talking openly and directly and comfortably and in a thoughtful and a respectful manner with other individuals. Suicide grows in isolation and darkness. And talking openly and directly and honestly and thoughtfully and respectfully about it shatters the secrecy surrounding suicide. You know, when we show this sign and it's displayed prominently in our homes, workplaces, communities, others seeing it are far more likely to become suicide talkers themselves. Maybe you just want to have a conversation about suicide. Maybe you just want to enlist someone's help in organizing a workshop. Maybe you want to signal to the world that you're available to talk about suicide. Or maybe you want to talk about your thoughts of suicide. We need to shatter the secrecy. This question, should we talk about suicide? If we want others to come to us when they need to talk about or want help with suicide, we need to practice being suicide talkers. What we say doesn't have to be profound, just comfortable and thoughtful. We need to just use the word suicide occasionally in a sentence. If others never hear us talking about it or doing this S talk, the message we communicate, although we may not intend it, is we don't want to talk about it, even if you need to talk about it. It may even send the message that help is not available. Imagine that somebody is under so much pain, they have become helpless, they have become hopeless, that they don't feel that they have any recourse other than to remove the pain by suicide. And everyone around them is missing, dismissing, and avoiding the issue. Can you see that that may isolate them even further? But to have somebody who's willing to use the word suicide in a sentence and is willing to go to that dark place and simply listen to them. As I'm fond of saying in chaplaincy, we need to let people verbally throw up on us and not be afraid of that, because they need to get the pain out. And just having somebody else willing to listen to the pain that they're under helps to relieve that stress and helps to relieve the pressure upon them. And that we can teach people how to do. Another notion supporting S talk is the mistaken belief that S behavior is relatively rare, and thus there is little need for us to talk about S. Let's explore if that's correct. Generally, the people living in most communities are not aware that suicide is a serious community health problem. Community awareness is often just as blank as this slide. Indeed, as we learn how common suicide, the picture that develops may reveal even more. This slide is a picture of the number of completed suicides per year. Note that number is more or less equal to all the people dying from traffic accidents and far exceeds the numbers dying from homicide. On a world scale, it's more than all the people dying in all the armed conflicts going on in the world in any given year. Suicide is a serious community health problem. In fact, in 2017, the last suicide or CDC statistics on suicide, suicide is the second highest cause of death from ages 10 to 34. It's the third highest cause of death from age 35 to 54. Those are staggering numbers. This is a serious community health problem. For every one suicide, there are as many as 40 to 100 suicidal behaviors that fortunately do not end in death. Injuries due to suicidal behaviors occur as often or more often than motor vehicle injuries in some places, and far outnumber any other kind of injury. Our picture of suicide is becoming a little clearer. 1 in every 17 people, between 5 and 7% of the population, think about completing suicide each year. Our awareness of suicide as a serious community health problem is coming into focus. How many people are affected by every single suicidal act? At this resolution, we're only envisioning one group being impacted. Say that this estimate of the impact is likely a fairly big underestimation. Let's take a quick poll just from this class. So pull out your app again. And I want you to check all that applies here. I know someone who died or might have died, injured themselves with suicide in mind, has had or whom you now suspect has had thoughts of suicide, is or has been personally impacted by suicide. So we can see that just from those that are in this class, 28% of the students that are here roughly know somebody who's died or might have died by suicide. Another 25% injured themselves. Almost 30% have had thoughts, and 21% has been personally impacted by suicide just in this small class alone. This touches all of our lives. This is a serious public health, community health issue. It has to be addressed. Add the impact of suicide up over our lifetimes, and it fills rooms just like this one with people concerned about suicide. It's very likely that all of us will be touched by it in one way or another over our lifetime. Now, what does that say about suicide? One of the things I think it says is what the sign on this slide now says. Suicide is part of being human. It could happen to any of us. To accept this reality is not to diminish us. It is instead to free us of the blinders that reduce our ability to help ourselves and others. It seems to me that unless we acknowledge the potential for suicide in everyone, in work associates, classmates, friends, family members, even ourselves, we are not very likely to conclude that there's not a need to help prevent suicide. Take a moment to remember the face or faces that goes with what you just shared about your lifetime experiences with suicide. If those memories remain very painful ones, I encourage you to look at the handout that we'll give afterwards once you send back your feedback forms on healing after suicide. We're going to be, again, sending all those resources out for you afterwards. Despite this overwhelming sense that suicide has or will intrude on all of our lives, some might claim that, at the very least, one does not have the right to talk about us without clear permission to do so. You might be thinking, if I don't have clear permission to tell about suicide, I can't, even if I would desperately like to. Or I don't have the right to just go ahead and involve someone in my problems. Maybe I even feel that I'm not worthy of help. If I don't have clear permission to ask about suicide, I can't, even if I have a strong suspicion that a person might be thinking about it. Or how about, I don't have the right to put my nose in someone else's business. Let's look even deeper into this situation. What's happening here does not occur by accident. If a person with thoughts of suicide wants to tell you about their thoughts, there are reasons why they pick you to talk to. You are inviting them even though you may not be fully aware of it. You could have easily found ways to turn them away had you wished to do so. If you are just about to ask about suicide, there are reasons why you sense that you should. We shouldn't dismiss, or avoid these issues. There are things that we can hear, see, sense, and learn about someone's situation. And based upon the things that we can see, hear, sense, and learn about their situations, that is what prompts us to suspect there might be a potential that they may have thoughts of suicide. And at that point, that's the point that we need to ask that question. Are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? That's freeing for them to have somebody else ask that question. So let's explore what's going on. You know, the T in suicide talk is to tell. I need to openly tell someone about my thoughts. I would like to tell several people. I'm aware that I may be cautious in saying it as openly as I want to, and I'll be watching for reactions. So why, if they want to die by suicide, would they tell anyone that's what they're thinking? I mean, if they're really fully wanted to die, no doubts, no reasons to hesitate, they had better not let anyone know, because that anyone might stop them. So why do you think that time and time again, for the vast majority of persons with thoughts of suicide, they in effect tell others that they are thinking about it? There's only one possible answer. They want help. They need help. They're in so much pain that they want to share it with others, but everyone else around them is missing, dismissing, and avoiding it. But what we want to do is we want to build a community that people know they do not face suicide alone, that it's okay to tell others, several others, and that those others, those suicide helpers, know about each other. What this person really needs is somebody who is caring, concerned, and serious, with no signs of avoidance or rejection. Who would you tell if you needed to? Does someone come immediately to your mind, or do you need to think about it more? You need to start with a positive perspective on asking for and receiving help. Imagine letting yourself feel certain that you deserve to receive help, and that that person that you're asking for help feels exactly the same way and very much wants to help you. Even when invitations are evident, some may avoid direct talk about suicide for fear that it's too personal or threatening an issue to talk about directly. Most inhibiting of direct talk is the notion that talking about suicide with someone who isn't having thoughts could cause them to start thinking about it. That is a myth. There is no evidence at all to support that notion. In fact, asking about suicide is a win-win situation. Everyone wins if thoughts of suicide are present, because then we know what we are dealing with. If what you thought was an invitation really wasn't, and they're not thinking about it, they now know that you're someone who would or could listen to suicide talk or any other important issue if they ever did need someone to talk to. First, think about the reasons you want to ask about suicide. It's not an accident. Again, they have let you see, hear, sense, or understand things that have brought you to this point of asking. It's not in a vacuum. We need to be willing to ask the question, are you thinking of suicide? Are things so bad that you're thinking about killing yourself, about suicide? And not be afraid of asking it because you're afraid of what happens if they say yes. What do you do next? We can teach you what to do. The question that's the answer that follows, tell me, why is it you don't want to live? We get into that in another class called ASSIST, which is Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. That's what's done on the suicide. Somebody used to call it suicide hotline. That is what's done. And in that class, over 2 million people internationally have been trained in it. It's on the Suicide Best Practice Registry. So We had telling, we had asking. Now we need to listen. We need to listen to them tell us why they don't want to live. Now, all of us, not most of us, all of us want the person to live. And that person is under so much pain and pressure right now that they're not able to see the path. You can't shift them over to living until you first heard the pain. That's why we ask the question, tell us why you don't want to live. They need, as I said, to verbally throw up on us, to get the pain out. So that as they're telling their story to us, eventually we hear reasons for living. We call that a turning point. So now there's a part of them that wants to live, and there's a part of them that didn't want to live. What can we do to help them stay alive? That's what the class will teach. And that leads to the next step, keeping them safe. Persons with thoughts of suicide often feel as if they need to solve everything all at once. They're overwhelmed, or at least confused about where to start. They're not always conscious of the need for direction, perspective, or guidance. But what we can do is to come alongside them and help them put together a plan for themselves to keep themselves safe, to help them to walk safely. And that's our goal. So I need to tell someone about my thoughts of suicide. I need someone to ask me about my thoughts of suicide. I need someone to listen to my thoughts and feelings about suicide. And I need help keeping safe from suicide. So do you believe that these needs can be met? That's really what the question is. Are you willing to put yourself into a situation that you're not going to miss, dismiss, or avoid the issue? And that when you see, hear, sense, and learn about their life situation, that you're willing to ask the question, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? And when they say yes, are you willing to let them throw up on you and tell you the reasons why they don't want to live? What's their pain? And then when that life starts to show up, so support that to help keep themselves safe for now. That's suicide first aid. So when a person with thoughts of suicide, I need to tell someone about my thoughts. The suicide talker is going to go, I'm alert to your needing to tell me. When they have a need to someone to ask about their thoughts, the suicide helper will have the attitude, I'm willing and able to ask you directly. I need someone to listen to my thoughts and feelings. I'm willing and able to listen to your thoughts and feelings. I need help keeping safe. I'm willing and able to help you keep safe. So what do you think? Is it possible to meet these needs? If a helper could do these steps, could they meet these needs? So what do you think? Yes? No? Not sure? Let's pull out the app. Yeah, I believe so. 100%. Yeah, we can meet these needs. We can receive training. So I'm not asking if you think you could help in this kind of situations. I'm asking if you have hope that there are helpers who could be trained to help, even when thoughts are present. Let's start with ways to prevent thoughts of suicide from even occurring. Okay? So These are things that sustain or promote life. Neighbors, medical support, responsibilities, hope, faith, work, family, financial security, hobbies, religion. There's a host of things that can promote life. So let's look at this statement here. I could make better use of my life-sustaining things by. Okay, I just want you to reflect on that for just a moment. Okay. And let's look at this. Here's a list of a number of different things. I want you to check the 3 that are most important to you at this point in life. My life-sustaining stuff. Okay, so we see family seems to be the highest here, followed by faith and hope, and then friends and health from there. So these are the types of things that help us to promote ourselves for life promotion and life-sustaining events. Probably the same types of things that would help others that are feeling under pain and pressure, that are having these thoughts of suicide. So let's look at the same subject matter on this slide, but this time from the perspective of a person who might have thoughts of suicide. I need help. I don't know what to do. Can you help me think about what needs to be done? Can you help me avoid dangers I may not fully recognize? So look at the same subject matter from their perspective now. So when we come through here on suicide talk, walk the talk, working at living and keeping safe. Okay? Working and living at keeping safe. We're walking the talk, telling, asking, listening, and keeping safe. So what would be the benefit if each of you decided there might be something, even one thing you could or would do for suicide prevention activities that would help? Look over this here. Tell others what signs you might show. Okay. So sponsor, organize, or support a training. Practice caring for help when needed. Believe that individuals can make a difference. Have a family or work or discussion about suicide. Get involved in developing community coordination networks. Awesome. So you can see every single one of these things are things that could be done in your community to prevent this river of suicide from somebody drowning. That's awesome. Thank you all. So look at the last section on your worksheet on walking the talk. Okay? If you want to make a commitment to do something, anything about suicide prevention, this section will help you organize doing that. Put down the date it will be 1 week from today. On that date, you need to look at the possibilities on the matrix that you have in your handout. Others that we talked about are ones that have occurred to you, and decide if you're ready to make that commitment. So 1 week from today, on that day, I looked again at the table of suicide prevention activities on the exploration worksheet. I also thought about other things that are not on that list. Then I decided to do what? What would that be on the exploration worksheet? Okay, so what we see here are three individuals. This particular person in orange here is somebody who's in the suicide talk mode. This is the person that is having thoughts of suicide. This is the person that's in pain. Okay. The person in yellow is the person that has gone through Safe Talk. Safe Talk is about a 3 to 4 hour course that simply is able to identify people that are having thoughts of suicide, coming alongside them and talking with them and helping them to get to the person in green. The person that's in green is a person that has gone through ASSIST, which is Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training. That's the person that actually does the intervention. Here in Montgomery County, I've had the privilege of training about 65 individuals from 15-year-olds and up. I mentioned at the beginning of this that we have the highest teen suicide rate in the state of Texas in our county. And one of the individuals that I'm fortunate to work with has a foundation whose daughter, Cassidy, died by hanging at age 16. He created a foundation in the schools of peers that are looking out for one another and that have been trained in this safe talk so that they could look out when they have their peers and friends that have thoughts of suicide. How do they talk to them and get them to somebody who can help them? That's all that the Safe Talk class is about. The ASSIST class, as I mentioned, is a 2-day class that gets into actual intervention on what do you do once that person gets to somebody that can help. So there are a number of handouts that I mentioned that will be passing out. Again, get the feedback form into us. And once that comes in, then we will be able to send you out the course certificate along with the other handouts that I mentioned, such as all these healing after suicide. There's a whole matrix of different events and suicide prevention activities that you can do. Suicide prevention in schools, for mental health, for living with risk at home, a number of different activities that could be done within your location there. So the picture is coming into more and more focus. As I mentioned, this was more of an exploration than a presentation. What we want is a suicide safer community where everyone is ready, willing, and able to participate in suicide first aid, that are not going to miss, dismiss, or avoid the issue, but are willing to ask the question, are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? So with that, we're at the end of our slide deck. And what I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions that you might have. And if you're online in Blue Jeans and you hold down this space bar, you can also talk. But for those that are in the classroom, any questions that I might be able to answer for anybody? Any thoughts? What stood out for you guys? Yes, sir. I can't hear you. Maybe Camille can. I still can't hear you. You're on mute. Can't hear you.
Sorry.
Okay, I hear you now.
Okay. No,
Okay.
it's quite scary when you're assisting someone who is suicidal. And my question is, how do you deal if the suicidal do commit suicide in spite of your assistance?
Well, all we can do is to keep someone safe for now. We can't keep them safe forever. But what we need to do is we come alongside an individual, and by quickly connecting with them and hearing a little bit about their story, there's signs that we can see, hear, sense, and learn about their life situation. That based upon that, we ask that question: are you thinking of killing yourself? And then at that moment, they say yes, that we're going to spend time with them so that we can learn from them why they don't want to live. And we want to help them pull that out. And that's what's covered in the assist class. We can't get into, there's a lot that goes into that, even just to connect with the person. But at a very high level, we want to connect with them so we can understand what's going on. And as we're understanding what's going on with them, we're then able to assist them to help keep themselves safe for now. We can't keep somebody safe forever. They need to go on. They're going to go on with their life and stuff. But we can certainly help them at that moment in time. They could be fine for years, and then months, and then weeks, and then days, and then hours. And there's an escalation that can occur. And it's just for that period of time that they need a little assistance to be able to process through the pain and their helplessness and their hopelessness. So we can teach how to come alongside them to be able to assist them to process so they don't take their life. But again, we can only do it for what we can help them to keep safe for this moment in time for now. Any other questions? Yes. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Justine.
Hi, Justine.
Hi. So I work in a church setting, and if I want to make suicide awareness or mental health a priority in our church, how do you encourage people to come to you if you're a group of strangers who want to be people to help, let's say like suicidal people get through talking about it and all that? What is the most effective way to minister to a stranger?
Well, again, you need to be developing a relationship with people. So as you are, when you're saying inside of a church setting with a stranger, are you talking about somebody who's a member of your church that you may not have met, or they haven't met you?
Yes, probably.
And can I ask what ministry you're in at the church?
Worship.
Worship. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I'm not really sure if we have a ministry for this aside from a counseling center. But if it's something that I wanna start or something help to help start it, I'm sure people won't be that confident to really just go up to us and just talk. So I'm trying to find a more effective way to do that.
Well, the suicide prevention matrix that we'll be sending you has a lot of different activities of things that you can sponsor and put on. There's the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP. They have Talk Save Lives and stuff. There's a lot of free events or free trainings that could be done. This talk, for example, you can give this one to people. They can watch this video. We can do this again, for a larger group if you wanted to. Basically, it's just talking about it, and not keeping it in the dark. This is something that there's a huge behavioral health and suicide stigma that exists that needs to be exposed. Again, suicide occurs in darkness and isolation. And we need to shine a very bright light on this, along with a lot of all the other behavioral health, mental health issues. And so it becomes something that is openly discussed. I think also setting things up in peer groups, like doing something with the youth, for that age group and stuff, and talking with them about this issue, doing something for the parents, doing something for the healthcare community, doing something for your first responder community, doing something for the community. I mean, this just needs to be something that is just, we want everybody. It's like what we need to do is we need to create a net, and that net catches people so they don't fall through. We don't want cracks. We want everybody trained. It's for the same kind of reasoning that we want everybody to be trained on CPR in case somebody has a heart attack. Not everybody that takes CPR actually ends up administering it or actually uses it, but we still want everybody trained in it. So it's the same type of thing. We want everybody trained to be able to do suicide first aid so that people are not missed and that they don't die as a result because we're afraid of this topic. So hopefully that helps. But again, when you get the handouts after this is over on the suicide prevention activity, the matrix, there's a bunch of things that are there. And you guys now have my email address and stuff, so you can always contact me. You can contact Camille. She's back there, and I'm sure we'll be able to put some other things together in the future. Any other? I'm sorry, go ahead. Did I answer your question? You good?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, in the back. And your name?
Hi, sir. I'm Australia.
Hi, Australia. Glad to meet you.
Hi, I'm from OM, and currently I'm doing a HIV and AIDS ministry
Okay.
awareness. So generally speaking, there's a lot of youth affected by this stigma, and once they have the HIV, they don't want to say it to their parents and families. So whenever I talk to them, they would tell me they'd rather just commit suicide or don't want to tell anyone. I understand we have to listen when they talk to us, but what are the safe, when you say we let them feel safe, what are these ways and means where we can make them feel safe? Can
Sure.
you elaborate more?
Yeah, there's different types of questions that we cover in the class. Basically, they're open-ended questions, okay? We want them to tell us their story, if you will. So, the two key words, remember, is tell me. Tell me what's going on. I need to hear more about what's happening, your reasons why not to. That ability for them to share what's going on with them. Think about this. If everybody else has a stigma that they won't talk about it, that they're going to do this S talk, that's going to make them feel more and more isolated. They're going to start to pull back because they're thinking nobody cares for them. Nobody is willing to go to this dark place. But all of a sudden they meet somebody like yourself, Estrella, and you're willing to ask that question. There's actually a relief that comes over them because you have just now made yourself a safe person to talk to. And you're asking them, and you're not judging them. Remember, this is part of our human condition. The issue really gets to the point of we have a fear of dealing with this particular topic. So we miss it, dismiss it, or avoid it. But by receiving suicide first aid training, you're now suicide alert. So if everybody else around them who has not had the training and are not alert and are missing, dismissing, and avoiding it, their perception is nobody cares for them. And they start pulling back and withdrawing and going deeper and deeper into what I call the pit. And they become more and more helpless and more hopeless. Just the fact that you are alert and looking for things that might mean that they may have thoughts of suicide, that prompts you to ask the question, and the fact that you ask it makes you a safe person from their perception. So it really becomes more about our overcoming our fear of going there. And that's simply a matter of learning. It's simply an education and a willingness of your heart to care for another human being. And that's really what we're talking about. You know, this isn't the class on chaplaincy, but we're ambassadors, and the heart of the chaplain is a self-sacrificial, other-focused love and care of other people. And it's in the demonstration of that. When somebody is thinking of taking their life, the most loving thing I can do is to come alongside them and help them to bear their pain and be willing to listen to them tell me what's going on. And that's how safety, it's love in action. I just don't know any other way of putting it. And I believe for us, because we're all, you know, with the seminary and the school and stuff, that's what we're supposed to be about doing anyway. We're supposed to be loving other people in a sacrificial, other-focused way. And that's why I'm so excited to be here with Grace, because, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years. And I just really believe that the skill set, dealing with this issue is one of the secular skill sets that chaplains have. And I don't know any seminary that's teaching how to deal with suicide. I mean, have you guys are people of faith. Do you know of any other than Grace? I don't know of any other. Dealing with mental health issues, dealing with stuff like domestic violence and human trafficking and all sorts of other issues. We deal with that in our classes, you know, because that's what we're supposed to be about. So making yourself a safe person is simply being a loving person, and being a loving person that's willing to go to dark places and bring hope and light and exposing the darkness. That's what we're called to do. Because that person that's having thoughts of suicide is in a very dark place at the moment. And they need somebody to love them to go and seek them out and be there for them in a safe way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody that's online that's not in the class that has a question? If so, please hold your space bar down, maybe even turn on your cameras so we could see you. But otherwise, I saw there's a lady with her hand up. I'm sorry. Yes.
Hi, I'm Steph.
Hi,
I
Steph.
guess a couple of us have a question. What do you do if someone's suicidal comes to you, but you're having suicidal thoughts yourself? And is it healthy for you to actually come alongside someone when you're struggling with it as well?
Probably not. What you need to do is you need to get somebody else to help them, and also to help yourself. You know, that's part of, you know, when you have an intervention team or something like that, that's one of the things that we always want to look out for, that we know and understand who we are, that we may not be that particular incident may not be good for us, because it may cause something within us that can have an impact on the person that we're trying to help, in addition to having an impact upon ourselves. So at that point in time, from the progression from this class in suicide talk, remember it goes to safe talk, and then to assist, most likely I would encourage you to say, this is something that's bigger than both of us. We need to get some additional help. And I have somebody, if you're okay, can we contact them and let's get you the help that you need and stuff. But I would probably prefer that. And then I would find somebody for yourself as well.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. Anybody online have any questions? Hold down your space bar, and if you move your mouse, you can see your camera icon in the middle at the top. You can turn on your camera and then hold your space bar down. Okay. Well, Camille, I think we're about done then. Good.
Thank you very much, Chaplain Ken.
You're very welcome.
If you have any questions for the, we also have a chaplaincy degree being offered, chaplaincy program here at Grace School of Theology. If you can talk about it more, Chaplain Ken.
Yeah, let me just pull this up here.
Yep.
Okay, so if you go back to your poll here, if you have an interest in degree, non-degree, undergrad, or graduate, if you could fill this poll out, our chaplain degree is in both the associate, bachelor's, and master's level. We have what's called clinical pastoral education as well. And clinical pastoral education is what's used for hospice and hospice agencies, or hospice and hospital agencies. But if you guys can fill out the slide deck here, I don't see anybody doing that, but we'll leave it up. Our Master of Arts in Chaplaincy is a 46 credit hour class for both community and public safety. We also have a Master of Arts in Military Chaplaincy, and we have a Bachelor of Arts in Biblical Studies with a minor in chaplaincy. And in the new catalog that will be coming out, you'll also see Masters of Divinity and also a Master of Ministry with some concentrations in chaplaincy. There are some other things that are coming up if you have an interest. You can see here, we have a 6-hour course called Basics. It's in Chaplain Boot Camp. That's a new thing that will be coming out shortly. We also have a care team training, which is developing a church-based infrastructure for pastoral care. And I just noticed there's a typo there. Our practical chaplain class is the course that I teach all over the country. And actually, I taught internationally also in Zambia for that government. But it's developing a chaplain ministry that's going to be able to be used within the church as well as reaching out into the community. Crisis intervention on faculty for the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation that was chosen by the United Nations as being the organization it uses all over the world for critical incident stress management. You can also see we got the mental health first aid. We also have a coaching program and nouthetic or biblical counseling. Now, everything that you see here on this page are non-degreed classes. So they're not part of our degree program. However, a lot of these classes have also been embedded in our degree, and that's what's unique about the collaboration that exists between Care Force US, Grace School of Theology, and the Grace Center for Spiritual Development. Our classes that are non-degree seeking, if you decide to take them and you later on want to get a degree, because they have been some of them have been embedded in the degree itself, we can create an independent study to add the hours to the non-accredited course to make it an accredited class. That's very unique. So if you have any desire for that, you could always reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions for you. So the last thing is to please don't forget this feedback form. It's very important. I need you to send it either to me at ken@careforce.us directly, or if you go back to that gsot.edu suicide talk form that was at the beginning and upload it there, we will then send you a course completion certificate along with all the other handouts that you did not get. So other than that, we are basically done, and I so thank you for the time that you've given me, and I hope that you have found this beneficial for all of you.
Thank you very much, Chaplain Ken. Someone requested earlier that we'd like to have a photo, a class picture with you.
Sure.
Maybe the audience can go up front, then we can take a picture.
Okay.
So that you'll also be in the picture.
Okay, as long as you send it to me.
Smile. 10 more, Chaplain Ken. 10
Chaplain
more.
Ken, we still have about
20 more.
100 cell phones more.
1, 2, 3, smile. Pa-Bluetooth na lang daw kung isa. Okay. Share it. Share na lang. Alright, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chaplain Ken.
Everybody consider yourself hugged.
Yeah. Be alert.
Thank you.
You can still stay for a fellowship. We still have snacks outside. Also, we have our student services at the back, so that if you have any questions regarding degree programs and also non-degree programs, feel free to approach them. Also, I'm also here if you have any questions regarding our suicide talk, our safe talk, and our assist. I'm still here. Thank you very much, Chaplain Ken.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
It's already 11 p.m. Hi, Tito Zinky.
Mabuhay.
May mga
Enjoy. Bye-bye.